Welcome to the class. All right, this is going to be developmental psychology. We're going to be doing an online class. Some of you have done online classes before. If so, that's great. We do things a little differently over here, as I will explain. First of all, you're watching a lecture, as you've probably noticed, and a lot of online classes don't do that. I happen to do it, and I'm mentioning this right off the bat because uh, over the last couple of years, I've tried to ask people online what their tip is. Like, let's say somebody's doing really poorly at the beginning of class, and then they step it up after a little while, and they usually get A's after that. And I ask them, what did you do differently? And I'll be damned, but the most common thing that I get is I started watching the lectures. Now, this flabbergasted me. I could not imagine. This is like saying, oh, I started going to class. Well, gee, I wonder why that helped. Um, the lectures are the equivalent of attending class. Consider this a normal class. The lectures are your class time. You can do it whenever you want in the week up to a point. And all the angel stuff is supplementary stuff. It's needed. It's obviously part of the class, but we have lectures, we have discussion board that we'll go over in a little bit, and then we have the tests online. So this is definitely attending class, and there is no way you can pass the course without without attending the courses. Without listening to the lectures, you cannot pass. Between 60 and 80% of the material that is going to be on the test is going to be discussed directly in lectures. So not only should you watch all the lectures, the people that do well tend to watch them more than once. It's actually nice to be able to attend classes because the lectures aren't long. You probably see this one is probably going to wind up being about maybe 20 minutes. You might have a couple of these a week. So you have time to watch them a couple of times. Take notes. If you don't have notes in front of you right now, pause, hit the little pause thing right here, if this works, and get notes and then write notes down. So we will go over a couple of things here. First of all, why I do the lectures to begin with, since this is kind of an odd format. I wouldn't need to do the lectures, but the fact of the matter is you are paying for this class. It is my job to teach you. I would be doing you a grave disservice if I didn't give you some lectures. This isn't just an online course. Doesn't have to be just you read a book and then take a test about it. That's cheap. You know, I'm here. I have degrees in this stuff. I kind of know what I'm doing. So my job is to teach you in addition to just what is in the book. And honestly, kind of fill in the blank because the book is written from a slightly different perspective than I think people need in the class. It's kind of like having two lecturers. You have the book and then you have me. Just like with any class. I keep looking over to the side, by the way, because this is the computer that I have with all my notes in it. So during the lectures, you're going to notice I'm going to look to the side and then look back to you guys. Now, this is developmental psychology. Now, for those that obviously everybody here is just taking an intro to psych course, a lot of you took intro to psych course with a clinician. This means they were talking about a lot of clinical psychology. This means how people feel, what happens when they go to therapy, blah, 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 blah. That is about roughly a quarter of what psychology is all about. Psychology is a science. It is I have a master of science in psychology. And I guess the PhD part doesn't have the word science in it, but psychology is most definitely a science. We're going to be talking about experiments. Everything we're talking about is going to be based around fact. This is why people think psychology is what they call a soft science, because they think it's not based around fact. They think it's just based around observation. You watch some people, you make guesses. That's more clinical psychology. developmental psychology is not part of clinical. It's actually one of the big 5 sections of psychology. You have cognitive psychology, developmental psychology, social psychology. I mean, there's a couple others in there. And clinical psychology is just a small portion of this. It's the one that a lot of people make money on, so it gets a lot of press. But it's the non-scientific aspect, and I don't do that. I am a scientist. I've got the lab coat. I honestly am just an eccentric that really likes lab coats, so and I earned it. So I get to wear the lab coat every day. I even wear this thing going grocery shopping, I'll be honest with you. Um, and so science is based around facts. The things we're going to be talking about here are not debatable. We might get into a section where I talk about religion. And these are not my opinions on religion. I would talk about how religion works in respect to how people develop. For a lot of people, when they talk about religion, they will talk about opinions on religion. I have opinions on religion. Those opinions will not enter any of the discussions. They won't enter the discussion sections. They won't enter the lecture. This is science. This is fact. A lot of people dislike some of the facts that we find out in psychology. This doesn't stop the fact that they're true. I'll give you an example. We found out a few years ago, and I can mention this here because it probably won't actually come into play during the lectures. We found out a few years ago, probably 10, 15 years at this point, they were trying to find out the long-term effects of sexual molestation. Not the effects on children, because we mess with the kids so much, it's really hard. We send these kids through therapy and we manipulate them after the molestation. So it's hard to tell what the effects are of the molestation and what the effects are of the treatment we're giving for the molestation. Again, that's the drawback with clinical. It really muddies the waters. So they did some experiments to find out the long-term effects, 20 years later, how these people are. And they found out there are no effects. There are no detrimental effects anyway. These people are just as happy as adults as kids who weren't molested. And obviously, people hated this. It was very controversial. And I don't mean controversial as in there were opposing findings. I mean controversial as in it pissed people off. So they chose not to believe it, even though there were facts, there were statistics, there were numbers. It was science. So 10 years later, they replicated the findings. They said, well, there was this problem with the experiment and this problem. You hear people critiquing experiments all the time. We'll do a little bit of it here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the experiment right. And you know what? They found the same thing. There just weren't long-term negative effects of it. Whether people like it or not, that's just the fact. It doesn't matter if you like it. Honestly, I study video games. I study violence in video games. And you know what? I study the positive effects because we've never found negative effects of violence in video games. As much as people want to find negative effects, they just aren't there. So try to keep your personal biases out of this. We'll even get into some of the debates on why the biasusin, I'm not really sure the plural on that. Just go with me on there. But why people have these biases, a little bit later in the semester, about midway through, it's an interesting discussion section we'll be able to get into. And keep in mind, science is all about statistics. So if I mention something, people act like this, and you think to yourself, my Aunt Ethel doesn't act like that. This guy must not know what he's talking about. Don't do that, okay? It's actually one of the logical fallacies that people should know about. You should know the dumb things our brains do, where you give things that are easy to think of more importance. Don't do that. This is based on statistics. Statistics works for most people. And other sciences work on statistics too. Medicine works on statistics. I know people who have had their appendix rupture and then not get it fixed, and then it just ruptured a couple of years later. It's not always deadly. It's just deadly most of the time, so it's considered deadly. That's just how science works. So don't take science personally. It's not about you, and it's not about the people you know. It's about the culture at large. It's about people at large, which is what makes it so cool. If everybody was the same, if there wasn't statistical variability, I'd be out of a job because everybody would already know. And honestly, you'd be just like everybody else, and how boring would that be? Another thing that I want to mention, this is a developmental psychology class, so we'll be talking about development. Everything we'll talk about will be about the developmental aspect. So when I talk about religion, I'll talk about how development affects religion, or how the religion affects development. Maybe I'll talk about how religion impacts how we see development in perhaps a not quite accurate light. No subject is taboo here. I mean, seriously, we can talk about anything from politics to violence to molestation to incest. All these things are totally valid in a developmental framework because they all affect the development that you have. But keep in mind, you are developing right now. We like to think of development as just, up until about puberty. Maybe we think, oh, they're 16, they're not developing anymore. Your parents are developing. You're developing right now. No matter how old you are, you could be 43 years old, and you're kind of a totally different person than you were 5-10 years ago. And how sad would it be if you weren't? It would be awful if you were to just stop growing as a person. I mean, we continue to learn. We're better people than we were, and this means we're developing. So only about half the class is going to be in childhood, and then the other half is going to be on adulthood. And we'll even mention things that, like if you're 18 years old, you go off to college, that's a developmental stage for your parents. They have to deal with that, and there's things going on that they have to deal with. You might even notice your parents got kind of weird when some people know it as empty nest syndrome. That's little clinical psychobabble, just a little bit. It has some validity to it, but it's just going to show that people do change when their complete environment changes and when they go through these life alterations. So now I'm going to go over the syllabus a little bit. Let me pull up the syllabus here. Nope, that's the syllabus lecture. Okay, syllabus. I'll give you the quick and dirty version. I have it posted on Angel, so you don't need me going on about it too long. Class attendance, very important. This college requires that I take attendance, and in order to do that, we use a discussion section. There's, obviously you're somewhat familiar with Angel because you found this, but there is a discussion section on the Everything's Under lessons, of course, and once a week, you have to post something there. If you don't, you didn't show up. That is the only method I have of taking your attendance. If you go through 2 weeks of not posting anything, maybe it's 3, I think it's only 2, then I'm technically supposed to fail you out of the course. So if I put up a discussion section and you think to yourself, well, I didn't really have anything intelligent to add, well, I could fail you out of the course for that. I'm kind of legally obligated to do that. So don't do that. Find something intelligent to contribute. Okay? Surely you have something. As far as that goes, the discussion section is very simple. I will put up on the discussion section, it'll be a little web forum, a topic. I will even tell you how you can respond to the topic. What you do is you make a reply to that topic. That's the first thing that you do. And do it early in the week. For the love of all that's holy, don't put it off till Friday or Saturday. Saturday, midnight, it closes off. You can't do it anymore. But don't put it off. You actually get credit for making that first post and reply with something intelligent. Usually more than a paragraph is good. And back it up with facts. So let's say I'm going over that thing I was just talking about, where they found that molestation doesn't have any long-term goals or long-term drawbacks, deficits, and that's the discussion post. Don't just say, I don't like this. Don't even do 2 paragraphs on I don't like this or I do like this. Look something up online. That's part of your grade. Because if you're looking something up online, you're out there, you're researching this. I mean, I hate to use online Google search I hate to use the word research for that, but it's something. You're learning. You're out of the classroom. You're going and you're learning. So you're getting credit for that. That's part of your discussion grade. And say, you know what? I found this, and not a blog. Please, again, blog people aren't, their opinions don't matter. You're like, you know, I found this research article. It was here. Here's a link to it. And it says this about possible negative outcomes, that they didn't, they checked out happiness quotients, but they didn't check out whether or not this person was more likely to be a molester in their future. Here's something that said that they were, or here's something that confirmed it, or whatever. But find something online to back up what you're saying. Research it. It's interesting. I'll only put on interesting things. At least they're interesting to me. And if it's too boring, I just won't recycle that idea for the next year. So you guys kind of get the value of experience here. So you get graded for making that first post. You get graded for making sure that post is not incredibly short. You get graded for having that post have something backed up, and you link to that so I can read it myself and say, okay, this person did in fact look something up. You get graded for not, and I hate the fact that I have to say this, for not plagiarizing. Don't cut and paste anything that you saw online. I swear, half the people, they find something online, they just cut and paste that whole thing, and they say, well, there's my couple of paragraphs. Don't do that. It's plagiarism. It's actually illegal, and I have to fail you. Technically speaking, I have to fail you for doing that and then report you to the powers that be, and you're supposed to flunk out of the entire class or possibly the entire college. So just don't do it. We're usually a little bit more lenient, but seriously, the rules are amazingly strict. There's in the syllabus, there's a link to the whole academic dishonesty policy. The other thing you have to do is, you get graded for doing it on Wednesday or before. Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. You get points for that too. If you don't do it on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, you don't get credit for that. And then you get graded for replying. Reply twice. And this is actually why I want you to do it before Wednesday, and why I require you to make your original post before Wednesday. Because nobody can reply to you if you put it off until Saturday night. And without replies, there's no dialogue, there's no conversation going on. The people in the class that get A's, they make a few replies. They check on this once a day, and they have a conversation. It's like logging onto Facebook, and it's valuable to the learning process. And so this discussion section, this is the attendance. You have to do it, whether you like it or not. And say something intelligent. The me too is not a reply. Yes, I agree. That's not a reply. In your replies, say something meaningful. It's amazing how many people will just say, I think that too. And they're like, well, I did my reply. I won't get a very good grade for it, but at least I did something. No, you won't get a grade at all. That doesn't even count. Textbook. Textbook is Exploring Lifespan Development by Laura Burke. There are 2 ways to get this. You can buy it online at Amazon. I think it's currently $13 on Amazon. Or you can buy it new in the library or in the bookstore. I think it's $150 on the bookstore. Truth be told, you could do both. You could buy it at the bookstore for $250. You could buy it online for $15. because the drawback of buying something online is it takes a couple of weeks to get to you, and in a couple of weeks we're going to have a test. So that would suck, because you won't, I mean, this is an online course. You really need the book. You cannot not read the book. You have to do the lectures, read the book, and that's what it's based on. So you could then, once the book comes from Amazon, you could then return the book to the bookstore, and you would be fine. You can buy the previous edition of the book. The changes aren't that drastic. The previous edition is fine. As a matter of fact, with this one, I think they came out with a new version this year. So the only way to buy it online, I think, this semester is to buy a previous edition. And that's fine. If there are problems with the previous edition, if I'm talking about stuff in the lectures that is just not in the book, let me know. As a matter of fact, read the book before you listen to the lectures. That way you will know what sort of things you can ask questions about. Do that with all classes too, even if they're not online. Read the book before listening to the lecture. That way when you go to class, you can ask intelligent questions. It really improves your grade. That's what all grad students, all your professors did that. That's why they were good students. We'll have 2 papers. We'll go over the details of those later on. There'll be one that'll be due during midterms. There'll be one that's due during the end of the semester. A, B, C, D, normal grading scheme. If you don't do discussions, you get a special type of grade called an FX, which means not only did you fail at a course, but you're kind of a special type of failure because you didn't even bother show up. And there's more drawbacks of that in the for the college itself. I may have the wrong syllabus up. I do that sometimes. Sometimes I put the syllabus up for last semester, just because I want you to have something immediately before I update it. So look at the syllabus. Obviously you don't have to memorize it. You won't be graded on it. But if you want to know about things, the dates may be wrong. For extra credit, you know what? I'll do an extra credit this semester. So nobody gets to ask for extra credit. If I assign it right now, it eliminates anybody saying, well, I basically screwed up all semester. What can I do to make up for it? Nothing. I will put up a couple of books you can read. You can read a book. You can't put these off till the end of the semester. You either read the book or you don't. And they're full-sized books. If you read the book and then basically pass in a book report, there'll be more details on that forthcoming later on. I will bump up your grade 1/3 of a letter grade. So you'll go from a C to a C+, a C+ to a B-, that sort of thing. The key is that you have to actually read the book, which is why you can't put it off till the end of the semester. And also will keep most people from actually doing it. So I won't have too many book reports to read at the end of the semester. But for those of you who are actually concerned about your grades and want to do a really good job, read a book. They're interesting books. They're easy reads. All right. Anything else I need to go over? Textbook. Learn it, live it, love it. Textbook has to be part of the course. Nothing I can do about that. Be on Angel a lot. Quizzes. And commitment time. This is an online course, so people have a tendency to think, well, this is an online course, I can do it at my convenience. No, not really. We still have to schedule things. That's just how life works. So you have to make a discussion post by Wednesday. You've got to do that, okay? So if you don't have time before Wednesday, either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday to be online, this isn't the course for you. We will have tests on Friday. It'll be about every other Friday. I think we'll skip a week every once in a while, but it'll be on Friday. It'll be for a full 24 hours from midnight to midnight on Friday. So if you're not available on Friday, but you're available at 1 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, great, because that's technically Friday. You can do it. If you are not going to be available on Friday, all Friday. This is not the course for you. If you cannot spare an hour during Friday, you will not be able to take the test. You will not be able to participate in class. It sucks, but that's just how it is. When you take the tests, they will be hard. And they will be hard for a reason. They have to be. This is an online course. This is an open book test. It kind of has to be. So expect them to be hard. I am not asking you to recognize the name of Piaget like you did in Intro to Psych. I will ask you the details on Piaget's sensory motor phase. And I am asking you this because you can Google it in the middle of the test, okay? Don't rely on your memory. The tests are based on how much you understand. I expect you to Google every single question if you don't happen to remember it really, really well. That was weird. My monitor just blinked a lot. So the tests are going to be hard, and they have to be, because I expect you to take an hour or two per test with the internet, because it's online anyway, Googling and using Wikipedia to basically cheat. It's a test designed for cheaters. So it's going to be hard, but don't let that don't have that be daunting. Just don't rely on your memory. Use your notes. This is why you have to write down so much crap while I'm speaking. Not only that, but this is designed to be, technically speaking, a 20-hour-a-week commitment, theoretically, of course. But I'm supposed to give you 3 hours of lecture time with any class, and then 3 times as much as that for homework and reading and that sort of stuff. That's around 20 hours a week that you're supposed to be putting in per class. You ever wonder why 4 classes are considered a full-time load when 4 classes are only 20 hours a week for actual class time? That's because you're supposed to be doing a whole bunch of stuff outside of class. This is a discussion. This is looking stuff up online. This is Googling your tests. So I'm not actually going to hold you to the full 20 hours. Nobody does. But keep in mind, an online class does not mean that you do it at your convenience once a week for 15 minutes. It just wouldn't work. This is not the class for you, and no online class is the class for you if that's what you need. That said, any questions? Ask me on Angel, and I'm on it every day, every other day on weird weeks, which I'll let you know about ahead of time. There'll be another lecture on how the lectures work. So, good luck!